Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this evening for another Glenbard Parent Series and helping us navigate as healthy families. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen in. It's awesome when it's in the Zoom webinar. Yes, Zooms are awesome, and the webinar is fantastic because as you're finishing up things for your evening, preparing for whatever you have next, whether it's later tonight or tomorrow, you can listen in and hear some good things from our new friends at Glenbard, Dr. Chandra Gill. Thank you so much for being here, Dr. Gill, and take it away.
So Raquel, thank you for the introduction. I'm about to introduce Dr. Montez, who is here from the College of DuPage, and she wants to welcome you. And before we even get there, I just wanted to tell you, Dr. Gill, this is the 25th year of the Glenbard Parent Series. And when we were putting this together, we thought of all of the special people that we wanted to have, and that was you. And so as you know, we've been working on this for over a year. So I'm so delighted this night has finally come. And I'm so excited that we've got some students who will ask you questions. So the format is you'll share your comments, then we'll have the students ask some questions afterwards. If anybody wants to email me, gilda_ross@glenbard.org. Or put the questions in the chat, we can offer them up as well. And I want you to know, Dr. Gill, about some very interesting programs coming up. So Jerica, if you'll show that slide. These are the people that help make this possible. Thank you to all the sponsors. We couldn't do it without you. So grateful for you. Thank you. Right after spring break, we've got a program on Thursday, April 8th, which is a distinguished roundtable on social justice. We have Kasim Rashid, who is a graduate of Glenbard South High School. He's the author of a book called Talk to Me, about why these conversations are so important. He's also the author of a brand new book, Hannah and the Ramadan Gift. And he'll be in conversation with Jonathan Mendoza, who's a spoken word poet that night. But the week after that, we have Dr. Michelle Borba kicking off her new book called Thrivers, Why Some Kids Struggle and Others Shine, on Wednesday, April 14th. Then the last week of April, we have two programs on mindfulness. So I hope you'll join us either at noon or at 7 p.m. It is lovely to have you all here. Thank you, Dr. Wilson. And without further ado, Dr. Montez, take it away.
Thank you so much, Gilda. Good evening, everyone. I am Dr. Natanya Montez, and I serve as the Interim Dean of Students at College of DuPage, the largest community college in Illinois. College of DuPage is thrilled to participate in tonight's event as a partner to the Glenbard Parent Series. Dr. Gill's presentation ties into our college's commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. At College of DuPage, we are actively engaged in student success and improving educational outcomes, and this makes introducing Dr. Gill so timely. Dr. Chandra Gill is an astute educator and award-winning motivational speaker. Viewed by many as a premier scholar and thinker, she is regarded as one of America's most prolific orators. Dr. Gill is the founder and CEO of Blackademically Speaking, an educational consulting company dedicated to providing motivational and culturally relevant content, products, and services. It offers itself as a healthy alternative to pop culture popularity and remains a perfect supplement for standardized curriculums in classrooms, with hopes of enhancing students' learning potential, critical thinking skills, and overall character. As an esteemed educator, Dr. Gill is regarded as one who simply knows how to teach, while touching the hearts and opening the minds of students everywhere. Her Champions Break Chains tour successfully reached 350,000 students, teachers, and parents across the US. Her more recent release, Black Genes, Black Genius, a motivational handbook to empower Black youth, is her answer to what she labels an attack on the intellectual and cultural genius of Black children. Her current book, History, Healing, and Hope tour, geared towards culturally empowering Chicago's children, is gaining a lot of momentum. Dr. Gill has received numerous honors and awards. Amongst them are Today's Chicago Woman, one of 100 women to watch, Chicago's top 40 game changers, and NBC's The Griots 100 list. In all things, Dr. Gill speaks to inspire, influence, and instigate growth. Her messages are thought-provoking, comprehensive, clear, and relevant to today's youth. Dr. Gill boldly believes, as she explains to audiences throughout the world, I am called to preach, my gift is to teach, and I am compelled to speak. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Chandra Gill. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the introduction. In the essence of time, since I see that there are some beloved students on here, I'm going to leave y'all some time to talk. So I'm going to do something a little different for my Glenbard family. I'm going to toss it to my co-worker, Dr. Peoples.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gill. Good evening, Glenbard. My name is Dr. Shawn Peoples, and today you have the opportunity to hear about two wonderful classes that will be held this fall as your students come in for their freshman year. I teach American history. In my class, you will learn about the forefathers of this great nation. We will talk about World War I and II, and definitely the Civil War. We will also talk about George Washington, the father of this country. We'll talk about Christopher Columbus, who discovered America. And we set aside time for Black history. In the month of February, we set aside one day, either February 28th, and if it is leap year, February 29th, where we will dedicate that class period to talking about those in Black history who paved the way for many of you. We'll talk about Rosa Parks, who sat on the bus, and the other one, you know, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. So that's what we will do in my class. So remember, American history, one day set aside to talk about Black history in the month of February, which is Black history. How appropriate. Now I'll turn it over to my coworker and colleague, Dr. Gill, who will talk about the class she will offer this fall. Dr. Gill.
My beautiful Glenbard students, we thank you for signing up to attend Glenbard. And as a teacher here, I will be teaching Blackademically Speaking 101. Well, we do not just teach Black history 1 month out of the year, the last day of the 1 month out of the year. In my class, you'll learn about Booker T and W.E.B., Carter G, and Ida B. In my class, we're going to talk about how we've come from 1921 to 2021 and looking at what the Black Wall Street did. In my class, we're going to talk about not only why Cap took a knee, but why we must stand up for what you believe in, irrespective of your color. In my class, Blackademically Speaking, Black History 200. In my class, I love my colleague, but unlike my colleague, we will run the spectrum in teaching Black history. So if you're listening to me now, parents or students on your way to Glenbard, we welcome you to our school, but most significantly, I ask that you take my class where you will learn how motivation meets education and transformation. I can't wait to see you in my class. Looking forward to seeing you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gill, for explaining your class. So now, if you can, I'm going to ask you to vote. Which class do you believe you would like to take this fall? Class A, if you want to take A, and you can drop it in the chat or maybe raise your hand if you can, take my class, American History. So A for American History. If you'd like to take Dr. Gill's class, put B. Put a B in the chat or raise your hand for that one. Again, that's Dr. Gill's class. My class, American History, A. We'll see. Wow, there sure are a lot of B's popping up. Wow. Well, I guess, Dr. Gill, it looks like B.
We're going to wait a little while longer. Let me see if any of will go for my colleague here. We have some B's here. Any more? We have some people chatting up. Dr. Peoples, let's just give the parents and the administrators and the students a fair share. Some people are maybe looking for the raising hand or the chat.
Well, let's see here. All I see are B's. There's no A's, Dr. Gill. Well, it looks like your class has been selected and looks like you'll have all the students in your class in the fall. And to the students and parents and everyone who took the time to vote, I would say you are absolutely correct. I would take Dr. Gill's class. B is the right choice. So I want to thank you for listening to our pitch, but you made the right decision, and Dr. Chandra Gill, founder and CEO of Blackademically Speaking, is the class for you. So while I prepare to share my screen with you, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Gill, and she will now move forward with the rest of her presentation.
I am so happy to be here with you today, Dr. Chandra Gill, Blackademically Speaking, where motivation meets education. And those who know me know I am not the one to bore you for the next few moments. I am here and I am excited about what's to come in this presentation. What I'm going to do is share a couple of slides on why I believe what I believe with education. And Dr. Peoples is going to make sure that you see these slides rather soon. But in this next few slides, what I'm going to do is walk you through Glenbard, the significance of teaching Black history, but not only so, cultural relevance in an effort to meet student excellence. And so Dr. Peoples, as she shares that screen and we get going here, okay, I'm waiting real quick. Full screen, Doc.
That's what I'm trying to get.
Oh, how we love technology. Blackademically Speaking, the importance of cultural relevance to inspire student excellence. So all of you who chose B, that is my style. And I believe that is the way in which we should teach and the way in which we should move about the world as it relates to where we are today in inspiring student excellence. Dr. People, you ready?
I am ready, Dr. Gill. So as Dr. Gill prepares to move into her presentation, I wanted to just share with you just a little bit of our B speaking norms. Our B speaking norms is what we do at Blackademically Speaking, in which we look at the standards that are set. Dr. Gill is going to share a lot of that information with you today and give you some information that's going to hopefully inspire you, motivate you, and also understand the importance of why we are focusing on the cultural relevance of teaching Black history and what that can do as it relates to our students learning, but also ourselves as adults. So one of our first B speaking norms is Black history is American history. It's not history just for Black people. A lot of times when we think about Black History Month, a lot of individuals think, oh, that's not for me. That's for Black students to attend or Black people to attend. But it's not. American history, Black history, it's the same. Black history is a part of American history. The other thing that Dr. Gill focuses on and believes wholeheartedly is that all children can learn. One of the quotes that she uses most often is by Dr. Janetta B. Cole, and that is, I've met some teachers who can't teach, but never met a child that can't learn. Another B speaking norm is teaching and learning Black history can help heal and invoke hope. And then lastly, as you just heard Dr. Gill speak on, motivation plus education equals transformation. Dr. Gill.
And so today, for the next few moments, I'm going to give you 3 pieces. And I ask that you bear with me, but I'm going to give you 3 pieces, 3 subsets to achieve my goal. And I want you to be thinking about ACE. ACE. Showing left on the screen is a woman. I'm going to walk you through history in the way in which I just introduced it at the beginning of this class, at this beginning of this presentation. This woman is Mary Arms, born in slavery, but as I've learned, built to get out of it. Mary Arms was, for lack of better terms, taken advantage of by her master, as it's known. And she then had a child, as was the case for many of those enslaved during slavery. Notice I say enslaved and not slaves. I use that language because I don't believe that any human being is a slave, and African Americans were a part of an institution being enslaved, but they came from a place not as a slave. Mary Arms, born in 1850, born enslaved, but built in slavery, but built to get out of it. Had one child by her potential master, the information is still out there, But she later went on to marry a gentleman by the name of Henry Hunt, and they bore their own children. Next picture. Here you have a lady by the name of Catherine Battle. Bear with me, Glenbard. Catherine Battle, same thing, born during slavery, but later went on to own her own land, had over 15 children as well. Catherine Battle taught her children how to read, write alongside her husband and play musical instruments, all in the late 1800s. African-American history is rich history, is good history. We got to teach history. Next one. Mary Arms, Catherine Battle. And here's an individual we do not have a picture for. To my students listening, Glenbard, I want y'all to pay attention, students, because I'm coming for you. This is a picture of a lady by the name of Lucy Covington. We don't have a picture of Lucy Covington, but we have a picture of where Lucy Covington is buried. Lucy Covington was also born right after slavery. She went on to own, just in the 1870s and 80s, a ferry in the state of Arkansas, in which she was later, some think, killed because she refused to bow out to the racism of that time as an African-American woman who owned. In the spirit of Women's History Month, I present to you Mary Arms, Catherine Battle, and Lucy Covington. Now we have a gentleman, just two more, Glenbard, by the name of Marshall McMillan. Marshall McMillan was a gentleman born in Mississippi. This story gets interesting, Glenbard, bear with me. Marshall McMillan, another African-American born in history. Again, we know Booker T, W.E.B., we know even an Ida B, and we can go on and on and on. But the beautiful thing about ancestry is just not like my co-worker said earlier, narrowed to Rosa Parks and Dr. King. Marshall McMillan, unsung hero, owned his own land. Some think as a sharecropper, right after slavery, minding his own business on the land. Marshall McMillan was approached, some say accosted, stories go, by a few white men who demanded that he sell his pigs. Marshall McMillan refused to sell his pigs. As the story has been told, the exchange was back and forth. He refused to sell the pigs. The white men then said, okay, well, we will take your pigs. He refused both of those. They left the land, swearing to come back for Marshall McMillan. Marshall McMillan went into the home with his wife. His wife then said, you know what, honey, I think we need to leave. I believe they're coming back. Marshall McMillan, as the saying goes, unbought and unbossed, as Shirley Chisholm said, refused to leave the land with his 2-year-old daughter and his wife. That night, Marshall McMillan met his fate. The white men returned. He did not sell his pigs earlier, and as a result, they not only came back, they killed Marshall McMillan on his land. Next one. Here we end with, again, I'm going somewhere, Glenbard. Here we end with a brother by the name of Felix Battle. Felix Battle, some records show, 1865, 1866, fought in the Battle of Nashville. 1864, fought in the Battle of Nashville. Anybody who knows history know what era that was. And during the Civil War, this young man at just the ripe age of 13, 14 years old, enlisted in what was called the United States Colored Troop, USCT. And as a part of that, many African-American men at the time decided to, if they were able to, become a part of the United States Colored Troop because that was their gateway to freedom. This man, we found out, was named Felix Battle. He enrolled at just the ripe age of 13, 14 years old. Anybody who studies history know that African-Americans were not given an age. They were barely given a name until this 1870 census, officially and legally. So we don't know a lot about Felix Battle in his early days, but what we do know is he was given his freedom. And that man on the right side of the screen is Felix Battle, who went on to also own the land. And if you want to catch it all and bring it all home together in the essence of time, go to the next slide. In case you missed it, Catherine Battle and Felix Battle are two individuals who are what? They're married. And why is all of this important to my presentation today? Is I'm showing you how you can teach history from a very relevant way, culturally relevant and empowering children. I believe our children need to know who they are. Glenbard and Gilda, I thank you for allowing me to come. I wanted to start today because I told you to keep ACE in the place. ACE on your mind. That A is for ancestry, but in case you missed it, this is my ancestry. This man, my third great-grandfather, on the left is Felix Battle. On the right is my great-great-great-grandmother, Catherine Battle. I went to college at the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign, trying to obtain just my bachelor's degree at the time. I was given this rich history. I was not, as I have been thinking, a first-generation college student. I later learned that my second great-grandmother the daughter of these two beautiful individuals, had gone on to Oakwood College in Alabama. And she and over 15 of her siblings attended schools and got bachelor's and master's degrees in the late 1800s, early 1900s. As you saw earlier on, Mary Arms, my third great grandmother. As you saw also with Catherine Battle, these are all paternal, maternal, and Lucy Covington, a woman who I don't have a picture for, but was also my fourth great grandmother. So when we're talking about how to create excellence for children, we can't be like my coworker in the classroom, boring our children and not allowing them to see the beauty of who they are. Yes, it's tragic what happened to Marshall McMillan. And yes, it's unfortunate, as my family has been telling that story through the ages, a man who had to leave Tutwiler, Mississippi, the very city that was responsible for burying Emmett Till, a young man killed in Mississippi at the age of 14 years old. So when we're talking about bringing this presentation into an impetus point and an impetus that's significant to my point, we must understand Black Lives Matter, and understanding not through the lens of how it's been politicized, but for Dr. Gill. When I think of Black Lives Matter, when I think about where we're about to go next, why Cap take a kneel and why he's taking a kneel and why people are protesting, not just African Americans, but Asian Americans and Latino Americans, Latinx, and on and on and on. We know it's because of the Marshall McMillans, who at just the ripe age of, he was not even 30, fled Tutwiler, had to leave, his wife had to leave Tutwiler Museum with in tow, my great grandmother, Bessie, who later became Gill, and lived in Arkansas, never seeing her father at age. And so next slide. When we're talking about how we transform and how we inspire excellence, I give you A. I believe that there's an ancestral element to what we must do. We must teach history through the lens of ancestry. We must allow children to tell their own stories. We must allow them to speak about who they are. We must allow them a voice in the classroom. And so I want you to keep ACE in the place. The first one is ancestral. Next slide. Dr. Peoples, can you help us understand a little bit about ancestry?
I can, Dr. Gill. As before we move into your next piece, I did want to let everyone know that the ancestral piece is not just about our students. It's also about us. I too took this journey of learning about my ancestry. And as an adult woman, I was in awe to find out that on my paternal side, my great-grandfather listed on the census that his parents were both born in Africa. I hear it all the time, but to actually see that on paper was very overwhelming. So when we think about our students and Dr. Gill talking about how they need to know who they are, we as adults need to know who we are. Because when our students and our children want to know about their family, because when they get excited, because they've heard Dr. Gill speak and they've heard her talking about Blackademically speaking, and they've heard her tell her story, and they've heard her talk about ancestry, they're going to then want to know about their ancestry. And so who do they go to? They go to their parents, their grandparents, their family members. So it's important that we take this ancestral piece and that we also learn about it and utilize it in our lives so that we can also pass down to the next generation about their own family. And then we need our teachers to be invested in that as well. So again, it is good to look at the ancestral piece. And I know Dr. Gill has 2 more areas to give you because she said she was giving you 3. So she's giving you 1, the A. So she's got the rest of ACE to go. Dr. Gill?
We got an ACE in the place. Y'all, I'm an engaging speaker. And because I'm not in front of you physically and I'm doing this virtually, I need y'all to chat it up. I heard there's some students on this call. And if there are some students, as I heard on this call, I need you to tell me if you are the class of 22, the class of 23, class of 2021. Can I see some students representing the chat before I go any further? Y'all know I am a little bit more engaged. I don't see none, Dr. Peoples. And what these students, any students here? I don't see any students.
Students, can you turn on your cameras and can you
chat? Just chat. Do you have class? I don't want to bore y'all. I need some engagement now. Class of 22 is in the building. I see you, Jason. Class of 22. but I graduate early. I love it. I love it. I love it. Class of 22. Oh, a lot of 22s here. Okay. Who else? Can I get a couple more? 20. Oh, we got a senior in the building. We got a senior in the building. All right, I'm going to keep going. I know we're short. We're not going to have much time, and I want to make sure, Gilda, that I engage the students in this slide. This is important. Many people know this has been highly politicized, but I'm just so intrigued by this seat. Here you have on the left side of the screen, Colin Kaepernick. How do we empower our children? How do we not politicize messages? How do we make sure that they are learning what they should learn to help them strive for excellence? We can't politicize Colin Kaepernick, and isn't it odd that Colin Kaepernick, and taking a knee, borrowing all of the politicized elements of it, he stood up for what he believed in. And he was no different. Again, the ancestral element. So I believe, to the teachers who may or may not be on, the administrators, we have to find creative ways to do what we call in the field of the education, or as a researcher here, cultural competence and cultural relevance. We just can't sit in the classroom in the middle of a global pandemic, in the middle of all of the social injustice and unrest, and not allow students to speak up, and not allow students to share their positions. And as my Norm said, I've met many teachers who may not be able to teach that well, but I ain't never met a child that can learn. And the way in which I teach, I don't care what color you are, what race you are, what ethnicity you are, where you come from, how much money your mother have, your father don't have. As a teacher, I believe that people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And we have to care about our students. And so in this slide, I just wanted to make sure we understood that a great example on how teachers can teach this is that we understand that here on the left, you have Colin Kaepernick, but just 50 years ago, over 50 years ago, you have here Carlos and Tommy throwing up the fist, John Carlos and Tommy Smith. They too were standing up on a global stage for what they believed in. Next slide. And so if we're going to keep ACE in the place, we have to make sure that there's the ancestral element. Next slide. But there's also the cultural element. The cultural element. Dr. Peoples, I really want to get to these students. I know that they're on the call, but I want to make sure that in this cultural element, we make sure for sure that we understand what it means to have cultural relevance, cultural competence. What is culture? What was Colin Kaepernick doing? What were Carlos doing and Tommy Smith doing? What happened in 1921? How did we get here? And just as we can't look at the culture in which we're in now, a great way for teachers to teach, Gilda, and I think this is very important. We could do this right now when we're teaching about all of the history in this country. We can look at just over 100 years ago, we endured the pandemic of the time, the Spanish flu. It would not behoove us to look at where we are today in this global pandemic and not look at the norms of that time and not see how we can be better with this time. And so the culture of 1918, 19 looks a little different than 2019, 2020. But the reality is we're looking at that data and the norms of how things went because we want to see if there's some things we can pick up. Just the same, we want our children to come in the classroom and be able to see the cultural significance of what happened in 1921 when we were looking at the Black Wall Street and 100 years later. We should not have a classroom in the whole state of Illinois and this United States that do not talk about Tulsa, Oklahoma this year. So there's some cultural relevance, some cultural competence that can happen. And so we have A, we have the ancestral. We have C, we have the cultural component. And Dr. Peoples, I need for you, if you could take it away here for our E. Excellence, 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 excellence. I tell students all the time when they say, well, I ain't perfect. I say, you ain't got to be perfect. You can be excellent. Well, I don't know if I can, you can be excellent. You can be great. You can be amazing. You can be wonderful. I tell students all the time, you're defined not by what you go through, but how you get through what's come before you. I want students to be excellent. I want students to stop saying to me they got good grades. And when I ask them what good is, they tell me a C. That's average. You need to be excellent. You need to move in a spirit of excellence in everything you do. And I'm not going to just talk about it. I'm going to let my executive assistant in real life, not my coworker in that skit, show you what I mean by excellence. Dr. Peoples, this is an example of my excellence as I'm teaching students in Inglewood, here in the city of Chicago, Dr. Peoples, I have no sound.
Apologies. Here we go, the technology.
I'm with Gilda.
Who was Jean Baptiste? 5 claps. 3 claps. 3 claps. 3 claps.
It's a little delay, but we'll go with it. In essence,
This ain't Chirac, it's Chirac. This ain't Chirac, it's Chirac. This ain't Chirac, it's Chirac. I am great. I am great. I am great. You are even great. You are even great. You are even great. You are even great. Together we are the absolute great. Together we are the absolute great. I am great. I am great. I am great. You are even great. Get that in your spirit. I need you to hear that greatness. I am great. I am great. I am great. You are even 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 great. Together we are the absolute great. Together we are the absolute great. Together we are the absolute great. This ain't Chirac, it's Chirac. This ain't Chirac, it's Chirac. This ain't Chirac, it's Chirac. I think I need to hear some Chirac still. Who was the first black mayor of the city of Chicago? Give that man his respect. He ain't Harold Washington, he's Mayor Harold Washington. Who was the first black mayor of the city of Chicago? Who was Jean Baptiste Point du Sable? The Chicago. And I told you today that I came here for history, healing, and hope. I want you all to know that you are greater than your circumstances. You are not defined by the vacant lots and abandoned buildings in Inglewood. Life is about choices and decisions. You got to make good decisions. I told you got to have healed head, hands, and heart. Healed head, hands.
that's fine, Dr. Peoples. I believe that we must have ancestral significance. Ancestral, there's an ace in the place. We got to teach our children who they really are and where they come from. We didn't come here as slaves. We were enslaved. Cultural, we have to make this relevant. What people are standing up for today, they didn't just start standing up for. We have to teach our children the trajectory of where this thing ends and lands. But we have to end with excellence. Excellence. Excellence that says, you're looking at a woman today, grew up on the south side of Chicago. To all my students, listen. Excellence. I want you to understand the significance of excellence. When you see me, you don't see a woman who, when I was a little girl at the age of just 12, 13 years old, had her first epileptic seizure. When you see me, you don't see a girl who went through testing to try to figure out why I was just falling out and passing out. You don't see what I went through. You don't see a girl who couldn't swim because they were worried that I would have seizures in the pool. A little girl who they said could never drive. A girl who, after going through testing, they found at the base of my brain, above my optic nerve, a tumor that they thought if it grew, it will cause damage to my brain or my optic nerve and my vision. I'm going somewhere. You don't see a young lady who, as a teenage girl all through high school, was not having the ability to do what all the other students could do, but still trying to move in excellence. You don't see a girl who, when she went to the University of Illinois, still was trying to move in excellence with great grades, fighting through her condition, or what some people call then a disability. You don't see that girl who comes at the University of Illinois as a freshman, who was told after one semester that she should come home before the semester ended because her epileptic seizure, which we don't know was caused by the tumor or not, but endured and suffered headaches upon headaches. And the doctors told me and my parents, we need to take that thing out. The tumor has to come out. And the time, they weren't all sophisticated. I ain't that old, but at that time, they couldn't go in a sophisticated way, and they wanted to open up my head and get this tumor out of my brain. You don't see that young lady. I got to end in the spirit of inspiration and motivation and education, because that's what I do. Yeah, the ancestral element. You don't see the young lady who came home to the city of Chicago and regrouped with her parents to try to figure out how we could get to the root of this. And my mama said, nah, we ain't gonna do that. We know another doctor, but that's another service. And so I returned back to the University of Illinois. You don't see that today, Glenn Bard. You don't see the student when she's talking about acing the place and writing books and traveling the country, Blackademically speaking, and talking about how we can create excellence and delivering a message now virtually and hopefully inspiring and empowering each of you as I wrap up to engage with you. You don't see the professors and the doctors getting together and saying, we don't think you should take more than 8 hours a semester. So instead of graduating with your bachelor's, it's gonna take you about 8 or 9 years. You don't see that student who was just Chandra from the South Side of Chicago, not Dr. Gill, not radio and TV personality, not the young woman who then will go on to be, in spite of, homecoming queen at high school, and who will go on to serve on a local school council, still not like everybody, but moving in excellence. The student who dared to believe in herself. I want to talk to my students today, Gilda, if that's okay. Because these students today need to understand the significance of excellence. Don't be like everybody else. Don't be average. Don't be good. Don't be equal. Be great. Equity, equitable, but not always just equal and average. They didn't know that I had some Marshall McMillan in me. They didn't know that I had some Lucy Covington in me. The doctors didn't know that I had some Felix and Catherine Battle in me. They didn't know that I had some Mary Arms in me, who was born in slavery, but built to break up out of it. They just didn't know that I had that blood running through me. That blood that says that when they knock you down, don't stay down, because when you look up, you can get up. And so I went back as a part-time student, taking just those 8 hours. I'm talking to Glenn Bard today. And I took those 8 hours, and even in taking those 8 hours and being part-time, I didn't do well. See, there's a path to greatness that ain't always great, but if you keep going, you'll get through and get over somehow. I kept going, Glenn Bard students, to the class of 2022, class of 2021, and everybody on here, parents and all. I didn't do well. I went home, I came home, and I got myself together. I was put on probation. I want to encourage somebody who may not be getting the best grade or not moving in excellence. I got myself together and having an ace in the place. I went back to school that next semester and got a 4.0. I didn't stop there. I doubled my hours from 8 to 17. They said it would take me 8 to 9 years. I got my bachelor's in 5. I then applied to master's and PhD programs, having no idea what I wanted to do because I went to college as a mechanical engineer major. I love my daddy, and that's all he did was fix stuff. And I decided that I would go on and get a master's and PhD after I left that program, engineering. I'm talking to somebody who want to be excellent today. I'm talking to somebody who want a teacher that can teach in excellence. Nothing against my coworker earlier, but if we're going to preach and teach and talk about the Civil War, we got to talk about the United States colored troops. If we're going to talk about George Washington, we got to mix it up with some George Washington Carver. We got to talk about George Washington Carver that just wasn't a good Black scientist, but a good scientist, and what he did for Tuskegee Institute, now Tuskegee University, prestigious in its ways in Alabama. You've brought me here today, I hope, because you believe that all students can not only learn, but they can be excellent. And the way to do that is through cultural relevance. We can't afford to have teachers that feel a spirit of guilt when we teach history. The only way this country will move forward is if we teach an all-inclusive element of history that does not exclude the truth, let alone an ethnic group. And just like I understood excellence, not only through the lens of what I was going through, but because I now know that if my third great grandfather could stand on land that he had just inherited as a former slave and child of enslaved individuals, and stand up for what he believed in just some hogs, some pigs. It was not about the pigs. It was the principle of that they belonged to him. And just like he stood up for his pigs, we have individuals standing up today. I challenge my students, be it class of 21, 22, 23, parents of those students. I challenge all of us to stand up and meet this moment. And just like that spirit of excellence overtook me, and I didn't stop at a bachelor's no more than I stopped at a master's, becoming the first Bill Gates scholar out of the city of Chicago and going on to write books, thus and so. Thank you, God. The main thing is I believe that in what I'm teaching, there's an ace in the place, and we have to have an ancestral significance. We have to teach our children who they are and really where they came from. They have to know that they didn't just fall from a tree. Cultural. We got to tie it into the things of the day so that we'll know there ain't no new things under the sun. But if we solved it then, we can solve it now even better. And we have to move in the spirit of excellence. It's that spirit of excellence that I operate in under the auspices of my company. Eloquence, effectiveness, and excellence. There's an ace in a place. And right now, I'm going to end with these words. They can't find that tumor. I had not had a seizure in over a decade and a half. I've written about it in Champions Break Chains. In the last seizure I had, I challenged Glenn Bard and all of the students, as I say in my tour, break chains, put an ace in the place, know who you are, and never settle for anything less than excellent. I thank you for your time.
Thank you. That was inspirational, educational, and it's a pleasure to finally have you here at Glenn Bard. Thank you so much. And for all the other people who are not Glenn Bard that we welcome so much, thank you. I know the students are ready with their questions. So let's start with Jeremy Wright. He is from Glenn Bard North, a senior. Jeremy, take it away.
Hello, I'm Jeremy Wright. I'm a junior at Glenn Bard North, and I have two questions. My first question is, who or what inspired you throughout your career to help educate younger generations about the importance of being emotionally, culturally, and socially empowered in their lives? And my second question is, what should the school administration do to help cultivate the cultural, social, and emotional empowerment of students in the curriculum?
Very good, Jeremy. You want to take my job? We can switch seats here. The first question is, what is you? You all inspire me every day. I think about our future, Jeremy. I think about where I've come from. I grew up on the south side of Chicago, and just to be quite frank with you, I grew up in a two-parent home, and I grew up in a decent area in the block, but not too far from me were people that just didn't make it even to high school. I'm inspired by what we can become, who we can become. I'm inspired by the Jeremys of the world who ask these very sophisticated, eloquent questions, who will someday be the next president, if not of the United States, of some big company, and you will give me a job. I'm inspired by you. I'm inspired by the fact that you're smiling because I'm speaking into your life, and I mean every word of it. But I'm also inspired by my ancestry. I'm inspired to do this work because I know that there were things that they couldn't achieve. And I'm a byproduct of what they couldn't do. And I hope to do it in their honor. I'm inspired by my parents. My father is no longer here, may he rest in peace. But he raised a daughter and a son. I have a brother who wanted us to continue the work, never forgetting that we are a part of a bigger picture. And he taught me things like wear the same size hat, never get the big head. So my mama, my daddy, my grandparents, and my ancestry. But again, I'm inspired by you. What can we teach administrators? I hope that I've done some of that today, right? I think that as administrators, I think that sometimes, because some of what I do is professional development, Jeremy, and I go throughout the country. My job before I started my company was to teach teachers, right? And in teaching teachers, I learned early that teachers seem to kind of like know everything, but we have to be teachable. And I think administrators can learn a thing or two humbly about what it is that you want. What would you like, Jeremy? Let me ask you a question really quickly before we go to the next question. What's something you would like to learn in class? Is there anything today that caught your eye that you would like to learn in class?
Certainly about, more about the contributions that our people made to American history,
Absolutely.
Like Black Wall Street, for example.
Talk to me, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Like Black Wall Street.
Black Wall Street, 1921. How was it in 1921, right after the Spanish flu and right before the Great Depression, in the midst of all that segregation and around the time of the Harlem Renaissance, Jeremy, right? Where you had African Americans as bankers, lawyers, doctors, accountants, all in one community. And if we could do it 100 years ago, How can we learn to do more of that today, right? And so we have to teach that. So administrators, Gilda, you hear them now. We got to be able to teach them. And to your question, as Gilda, I know is very fluent in, how to invoke hope. It inspires us to know these things, right? And so the more we know, then you can walk around, Jeremy, you can start teaching your book of TWEB, your I to B, and getting it in like that, right? So I hope that answers your questions.
Thank you. Lovely. Thank you so much. Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you, Dr. Gill. Next up, we have Heaven Martin from Glenbard South. Heaven, are you ready with your question?
Hello, yes, I am ready. My question is, with all the trauma in society, like pandemic and racial injustice, how do we stay focused?
Heaven, I'm gonna just give y'all a talk show and y'all just switch seats, you know? First of all, beautiful name, Heaven. I think that one of the ways for me is I try to drown out the noise, as hard as it is, right? Again, but if you got a historical context, one of the things I say is we left slavery, but slavery haven't left us. And what I mean by that is we left the plantation, but there are some things in us as African Americans that we can still work on. So I go inward, meditation, prayer, that's what I do. And then I try to, my dad used to use a 5-letter word that I'm going to give you, Heaven. You know it all too well. It's a simple word. But I remind myself, I can hear him in his deep voice, focus, Chandra, focus, right? And I focus on what I'm here to do. I'm not defined by the things that happen to me. I define the things that are happening to me by changing my mindset about those things. So with all of the trauma, that's a beautiful question. I go inward and I remind myself who I am. I'm a queen, Heaven, and you are too. Look at you, I see you smiling, right? And you got a name to remind you, so you just a win-win. You know, you can just go inward with your name, and all you gotta do is get up every day and say, I'm Heaven, so I'm gonna move heavenly. But in the spirit of trauma, I do also want to say this. Counseling, therapy. We don't talk enough about it. I believe in therapy. I believe in counseling. I believe in sitting in areas that are edifying. And the last thing is that I think is important for young people. Friends that are positive. Having people in your life that don't tear you down, but build you up. I always say this, one of my oldest sayings. There are 3 letters at the end of friend. Some are your friend and some are your end. And if you focus on them last 3 letters and start to take inventory of who you have in your space, the pandemic is enough. You don't need negative people in your life telling you think you're too good, you think you're better than this. You go high and say bye-bye. That's it. So counseling, therapy, positive energy, go inward and focus. Take time if you must. This has been a rough year, but you got a name, Heaven, so you just a win-win.
Beautiful.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome so much.
Thank you. Lovely. Next up, we have Danielle Johnson, who is a senior at Glenbard East.
Hi, my name is Danielle Johnson, and my question was, how can I, as an African-American student, encourage more African-American students in my school to be more involved in their academics and like being in AP classes or like just education in general?
Oh, they're not inspired educationally, Danielle? Okay. I'm not putting you on the spot. That's okay. Well, we need to.
It's like in all my like AP classes and stuff, I'm one of the only Black girls in the class.
Oh, okay. Okay, well, I need to get to, what school are you at?
Glenbard East.
We need to get that, don't we? And I need to get that, huh, Danielle? We need to inspire your friends. I think that the best thing you can do for starters is to be the example. That's number one, you know. I know in church, they say the best sermon preached is the one lived, right? And so just bringing it to you as a student, you know, the best message is the one lived. So I think by number one, being the example of what you talk about, but also being inspiring, right? Walking around and saying, you know, finding examples and saying, hey, I need somebody at Stanford with me. I need somebody at Princeton with me. I mean, I don't need, and come up with creative stuff. We got Princeton, we got prison. I mean, which one, where we headed, right? I mean, find ways to say, do you know who you are? Why settle for less? Why allow me, if you my sister or my brother, why allow me to be the only Black student? And do you know who you are? And so I think that if you have authentic conversations with your friends and letting them know that, you missing out, and start having goal conversations. I'm sure have you heard, instead of gold, G-O-L-D digger, gold, G-O-A-L digger? Say, I need to start a gold digger club. We digging for goals over here. Maybe start a club and say, listen, if you're afraid, scared, start a virtual group to talk about how, I was listening to Dr. Gill, and it's ACE, and I need a group of excellence because I can't be the only one going to an Ivy League. But above all, be the example. And by no means, even if they never come, you continue doing the work that you do. Continue being great, but above all, continue being excellent. Be an example. Let them feel bad about being average. They'll come.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. Next up, we have Kijane Stubbs from Glenbard East. Kijane is a junior.
Hi, Dr. Gill. I wanted to start off by saying that everything you said really inspired me on a level I didn't think could. I don't normally go to things like these, so I was kind of skeptical in the beginning, but I'm a junior at Glenbard East, and my question for you is, what empowered you to start a movement like this? Was it because of your past and people telling you that you couldn't do it, that you wouldn't make it? Or is it because of the future that Black Americans are in today?
What school are you at again?
I go to Glenbard East High School.
And how you pronounce your name?
Kijane.
Kijane. Girl, I'm gonna have to send y'all some books. Kijane, I'm real personal, right? When I was your age, I vowed that, probably a little older than you guys. I pride myself on one thing. I was just like, if I ever become a teacher, I'm gonna be the cool teacher. I'm gonna be the teacher that when you come in my classroom, you want to go to Dr. Gill class. And there's no disrespect to some of the teachers I have, but some of the teachers, like what you just said, I dreaded going to class. But I later learned, though. For instance, I didn't like history, so it's odd that I teach history around the country in my company. I learned that it's not sometimes you don't like the subject, it's sometimes you don't like the teacher teaching the subject, not the teacher, the person. But there's a word I want to give you. Dr. Peoples, can you please put the word for my students in class? Pedagogy. Pedagogy. Stubbs, I'm gonna call you Stubbs, okay?
Okay.
This.
Mm-hmm.
Stubbs, pedagogy is the art of teaching. And before I go to that, I want to make sure you know pedagogy. Pedagogy is what you saw at the beginning of the session. You had Dr. Peoples, Exhibit A, and then you had me. All y'all wanted me. Because pedagogically, it's the way in which I taught. She was teaching history. I was teaching history. She wasn't as engaging. Pedagogy is the art of teaching. And so with that, and to your question, what inspires me, again, is you. I don't want you to not like what you're called to like because you didn't have the right instruction. There are students who say, Doc, I don't like math. And I'm like, do you like money? Well, if you like to count money, you might want to rethink math. And I want you to know that you inspire me. Young people inspire me every single day to be greater, to be better, to be stronger. How do I get beyond the negativity of, if I'm hearing you say that as well, people telling me what I couldn't be, what I couldn't do. I've heard students say, I just want to prove them wrong. I say, no, you prove yourself right. Prove yourself right. Care about what they think. What do you think? You saw the people, and thank you from the bottom of my heart. I'm glad you came. I get testimonies like that all the time where people are like, another boring speaker. Don't want to go. And it ain't nothing against nobody, but I'm glad that you came. I'm glad that you're glad that you came. Dr. Peoples is going to share my email address, and if you want to email me, feel free. But I
Okay.
want you to know I do it for you. And in closing, I want you to know that there is nothing nobody can say about you that should tear you down. Don't prove them wrong. There's an ace in the place. Prove yourself right.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I love you. In case
I
you
love you
didn't
too.
hear it today.
Thank you so much. Jason Thomas just rushed home from football practice at Glenbard West. He did not want to miss this. So Jason Thomas, junior at Glenbard West, you are up next.
Hi, my question is, did your parents tell you about your history, and how did it feel to kind of like sit down with them and just talk about your family history in depth?
Well, thank you for rushing home. Y'all making me feel special today. Jason, what position you play?
I play running back and linebacker.
No, you weren't expecting that question. No, see, I'm a little well versed. I got you. My parents would always teach me, they didn't sit down and give messaging and lessons just directly, but they often talked to me about their parents. And they said things that were akin to wanting better for me because they didn't always have it growing up. I was always inspired by that, you know, how my father escaped the racism of his time, went on to some of the better high schools and elementary schools. My grandparents would talk to me, but I was really interested, and I encourage you, Jason, sit down with your grandparents. In some of the classes that I teach, I sit down with my students and I tell them to know your mother, your father, your grandparents. Take some time if you're not doing that. Tell them, record their stories. And what happened to me was, as I grew older, I started to learn it myself. I can't say that every time my father talked, I wasn't doing what some of us do. All right, Dad, I know, you know, right, you know. But now that I'm older, I'm like, wow, my father told me, because now he's gone. And so it made me feel good to know that I was a part of a great family, even with some of our dysfunction, no perfect family. But I was always excited about the fact that my parents came through a lot, and I just always wanted to make them happy. And since then, I've just taken it upon myself. Those things you saw today came from family. Some of those things I found on my own through keys and things that have been laid along the way. So it has made me feel wonderful. You can't tell in how I'm speaking, which is why I wanted to give life to them today. And some people will say, don't do that. That'll bore your students. Students, were you bored, Jason?
No.
See? And that's what I think, but it's pedagogy. It's how it's taught. And I want you to be encouraged and go find your third great grandfather, your fourth great grandfather. You'd be surprised where you come from, Jason.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome so much. I think you're a good cross between a middle linebacker, but we'll see where you're headed.
That's true.
Huh?
Yeah, I play a lot of like running back and middle linebacker. So yeah.
Okay. Hey, you'll be the next one to do both. I look forward to it. You heard it here first, though. If it happens, you gotta buy a book or something 10 years from now. So.
I will.
And Dr. Gill, thank you, Jason. Our last question of the night. This is we've invited Jordan King. Jordan is a student at Naperville North. So welcome, Jordan, and take it away.
Hi, Dr. Gill. Thank you so much for coming out tonight. Your presentation was wonderful. I have two questions for you. My first being, what advice do you have not only for Black students, but any student of color that is struggling with identifying with their culture in a predominantly white school and community setting?
What advice? That's a real important one. You're saying they're talking to white students or just to the students, period?
Just advice on how students of color are struggling with identifying with their own culture in a predominantly white setting in school setting.
First of all, let me do the adult thing, and I have to go. I know I'm rushing through you guys, but I'm over time. Let me do the adult thing, Jordan. We owe it to you, right? Jordan, I want to look at you. We owe it to you as adults to make sure you don't feel that way. You should not, as an African-American student, not feel welcome in a learning environment. So we got to first fix that. That's the adult in me. There should not be a child in any school setting that's not learning the value of who they are. That should not be learning about Black history, Chicano, Mexicano, Latino American history. We have to do better. So that's number one. That's not your fault. You were born into this. You didn't create this. I always tell students. So that's some grown folks talk. We got to fix that. To you, though, I would always encourage you to know who you are with what you, instead of getting on Snapchat, snap that finger over to Google and know who Marian Anderson is. Know that, you know, Kamala Harris, be it the first black female or black woman as vice president, came on the backs of Barbara Jordan, came on the backs of Shirley Chisholm, came on the backs of Patricia Roberts Harris as the first African-American to serve in the cabinet. You have to take your history seriously. If nobody ever give it to you, you got to learn it. And in knowing about Fannie Lou Hamer, you'll know if Fannie Lou Hamer with an elementary school education somehow managed to become as great as she is, surely Jordan King can move around and move some mountains in the middle of a valley. So it comes down to how bad you want it. And I tell students that even if nobody gave it to you, you got a search engine in your phone. You got to want it. You got to take it, and you got to drown out the noise and focus.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome so much, Jordan. I hope to meet you guys one day soon. Maybe we can do some more of this sometime soon.
You have room for a second one?
I'm late on my other session. I got 1 minute. Go for it. I'm glad to be needed. So come on. Gilda, we're going to have to do this again. You see this, right? We got to.
I can tell.
Come on, Jordan. Come on, make it quick because I got to hop off.
What can students of color do to instill the importance and significance of cultural relevance in our curriculum to other students and staff?
Demand it. You have to put a group together. You said, what can you all do? You gotta tell us you want it. And we have to build it for you. I mean, and if we can't do it institutionally, if we can't do it in a way, you build the group yourself. Ask if you could create a Black History Club. Ask if you could create a club of inclusivity of all ethnicities, you know? Build a motivation club, build a Blackademically speaking club, build a club where students can have a voice irrespective of ethnic background, irrespective of all things that make us different. We live in a world with a lot of people, and it behooves us to learn how to love each other, respect each other, and care about each other. And the best way to do that is to learn about each other. You build the group. I'll come and speak for you if you need me. Jordan, I have to hop off. My other group.
Dr. Gill, you go. Well, I say thank you to everybody else. It was such a pleasure having you here tonight. Thank you.
We'll have to do this again. We'll figure it out. Jordan, Jason, Stove, Jeremy.
I promise. Thank you, Dr. Gill. Thank you, Dr. Peoples. Thank you, Dr. Montez. Thank you, Dr. Wilson. Thank you, Jerica. Thank you, Jeremy, Heaven, Danielle, Dejanay, Jason, Jordan, all of you for giving your time tonight. It was such a pleasure to have you on this call. Thank you to the sponsors who make GPS possible. Thank you for the many participants that joined us tonight. And I do hope you'll come back. You'll see what's coming up. Coming up, we've got a roundtable on social justice on April 8th. We have Thrivers, the 7 teachable habits that set high-performing students apart. Matt Dewar will be talking at noon at 7 about mindfulness. And then finally, closing out the year, the addiction inoculation, raising healthy kids in a culture of dependence. Thank you for spending this time with GPS tonight. Have a great evening, and thank you again, everybody. So inspiring. Take care and be well. Thank you.